Welcome to Embodied Microdosing, where we explore the miracles that happen when we combine intentional doses of sacred mushrooms with trauma-informed somatic practices. Hi, I'm Rai, and this ministry is on a mission to help you embody healing. Let's answer your questions and call in expansion so you can integrate these highly effective evidence-based tools into your journey. Embodied microdosing is where science and spirituality meet to awaken the healer within. Let's take one conscious breath together. And begin. We are here in the Embodied Microdosing cabin, testing out a new placement of the microphone, hoping that my audio, my sound is going to reach you clearly. Hi, welcome. So glad you're here for this really important episode about depression. Depression. I mean, how many times do we hear this word, the diagnoses of major depressive disorder, see the commercials on TV for the SSRIs, hear about people in our lives who are taking medication for depression, and I might just break through all of what you think you know and offer a different perspective to you today. Because if it's not you that's struggling with symptoms of depression, it's somebody that you know. So let's explore it with microdosing in mind, of course, and through a body-based lens, a lens that centers the nervous system. I'm going to talk about suppressed emotions and the deeper story beneath the symptoms of depression in this episode. Of course, before we begin, I just want to say this is for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. I am not a doctor. If you are struggling with clinical depression, suicidal thoughts, please reach out to a qualified clinician. There's my disclaimer, because you got to do it, and I'll be totally blunt in saying that many of us, many of you, many of the people who struggle the most and come to microdosing desperate for relief have reached out to qualified clinicians and have tried the Western perspective and have attempted to treat their depression with drugs and I'm not sure what else the Western perspective offers for depression, and have not had success. Of course, therapy is also part of the Western paradigm for depression, and maybe I'll get into a little bit of that, of why that isn't always helpful. Not discounting all of therapy, but have not seen evidence that supports talk therapy supports shifting out of depression. There certainly are therapeutic modalities that have some potential, but I want to talk mainly about this core idea here that depression is suppression, that this isn't just sadness. Okay, and really, if you're truly sad, if you are feeling grief, if you are in that well of sadness, that's not depression. Depression is more of the numbness and the exhaustion and the inability to feel at all. And that numbness can be really scary. Now, I'll be honest here and say that depression as a clinical diagnosis was not ever something I struggled with. You could probably put me in more of the anxious category, but I do know that people, even those who experience anxiety, vacillate between anxiety and depression. I'm really talking about the depression that really can cripple some people, make them unable to function. And I am married to someone at over 20 years who received a clinical diagnosis of MDD, major depressive disorder, after many, many years of struggling through that. Now, the clinical diagnosis doesn't mean that much with me, but as far as the Western perspectives go, he had depression. I am using that in the past tense here. It's not just being sad. It's this suppressed emotional energy that is at the root of depression for many people. And I think this is what's not talked about as much. So when your grief, your anger, your disappointment, and your shame, that one is really key, don't have permission to move, or you don't have the understanding of how to move them, or you have been chronically suppressing those undesirable and uncomfortable emotions for a long time, your body begins to store them. That can look like a tight chest, heavy limbs, low energy, a sluggish digestion, disrupted sleep, or too much sleep, or always being tired. And over this time, this becomes a pattern of low activation and of this like flattening, numbing effect. Now, I don't think medications are terribly helpful for this. I am not anti-medication. I think there are some helpful medications out there. But SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that whole class of drugs, Prozac, there's more of them, Zoloft. There's a whole category. I forget the brand names of them, but you know what they are. And then there's SNRIs that are often used. Some people say those are more effective. Either way, they typically don't help the mobilization that is needed. They work right on serotonin or norepinephrine receptors and supposedly help modulate and create more availability, more uptake of that serotonin. Let's not forget here right off the bat, because we are here on this podcast and inside the Embodied Microdosing Ministry to talk about microdosing, specifically microdosing sacred mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, that mushrooms also work on the serotonin receptors, the 5-H2A receptor. There is a fairly similar function happening there and can be a really viable part of a treatment plan for someone who is experiencing major depressive disorder, clinical depression, and these symptoms that I'm going to talk about more here, this suppression of emotional energy. So microdosing presenting a viable option for those with depression. Many report, who I've worked with over the years, a lift in mood, this sort of feeling that like, oh, I am okay, or things are okay, or it's a little easier to smile. That's the serotonin. Okay. So, but, and microdosing is not a singular solution for anything, just as an SSRI is not a singular solution for depression. It is absolutely criminal to me that someone would present just a pill to someone struggling with a whole host of symptoms and suppression and physical, energetic, emotional, and spiritual crisis happening and say, just take this pill. So if I'm horrified by that approach in the Western perspective, I get to also bring that to the perspective where some say, well, then just take a microdose. Just fix it with mushrooms. That's not how this works. We are not abusing and using mushrooms as a replacement for pharmaceuticals, right? We are working in communion and co-creation and conversation with the sacred mushrooms to help open the doors to what needs to be felt and expressed and moved and seen and realized and said. So mushrooms not going to just fix it, but mushrooms are going to show you the way and give you that serotonin lift that really is so helpful for just like pulling up out of darkness. I'm going to get to what I think the most effective way to treat depression and symptoms of depression is, and it's not microdosing. Okay. So why does this conversation matter? Right? Not just because we're trying to fix what's broken about you, but because we are making space here for what's been buried. Healing is not about thinking your way out of it, which is why talking your way out of depression also doesn't make sense. This is about the embodied piece, letting the grief, the anger, the frustration of your inner child with these unmet needs rise up, move through the body, be heard and seen, instead of being pushed down again and again and again. So this suppression of emotional energy becomes somatic. It becomes a physical issue. I remember seeing a Cymbalta commercial back when I still watched like television, and they have all these pharmaceutical commercials on, and the, depression hurts everyone. And it's like a little illustrated little blob, like sad, cry, like walking around. And then I remember them listing the symptoms of depression. This was years ago, and being surprised that some of the symptoms were physical. In fact, many of them were physical, right? Heavy limbs, unable to get up, sleeping too much. Like, so this isn't just in the mind. I don't just feel sad in my head, I'm experiencing it in my body, right? We know that is the case with all of it. No one is just anxious in their head with their thoughts. What your mind is doing is a reflection of what's happening in the body. Okay. So the body remembers, the body holds, and the body is trying to give you or the person that you love struggling with depression a message. It's trying to tell you something. None of the symptoms that you experience are random or just because your body is deciding to attack you and turn on you. Your body loves you. It wants to survive. It's created to regenerate and to heal. So the symptoms you experience are little clues along the way. Healing is about giving yourself permission to experience the sensations and the energies, that means emotions, that are asking to be felt. And this is kind of the like, okay, I get it, but how do I do that? That's what we do inside the ministry. That's what we do at Breathwork Church when you breathe for a minute and then feel like you need to scream. And then I cue a silent scream or shaking of your hands or a stamping of your feet or a slowing down and a placing your hand on your heart to say, I'm here, I'm with you. Let's talk about the nervous system, like from a little bit more of a science standpoint. I've talked about it before a few times here on the podcast, but I just want to bring us back to polyvagal theory. The way our nervous system and specifically our vagus nerve operates to help us survive and stay alive. So we're meant to sort of cycle between these different stages or these different expressions of the nervous system when we're engaged and social and connected, right? The sort of optimal regulated state. We all perceive that as like, good, that's the best one. It's the ideal one. It's the most comfortable one. And we are also designed to go into sympathetic activation, which I've talked about before. That's the fight or flight that everybody knows so well. And we demonize and say like, oh no, I went into fight or flight, or this is so bad, or that person triggered my fight or flight. That's normal. We're supposed to go into sympathetic activation. Now, if you're stuck in that state and you're triggered all the time by everything, that's a different story, right? That's what we're doing, trying to expand and make flexible your system so you can vacillate between those states. Don't forget that sympathetic activation is also responsible for like arousal, like getting turned on, having sex. If we were always just like regulated and never got aroused, literally, life wouldn't be terribly exciting. But we need that arousal for so many things. I mean, if you've got a deadline at work, right? You're going to get that arousal, that need that like, I have to complete this now. You're going to generate some stress hormones in moderate amounts, ideally, and get the energy that you need to complete the assignment, to escape the person who's following you, if there's a true dangerous situation, to mobilize you to leave an abusive relationship. Okay, we need sympathetic activation, and we need to be able to come back to social engagement and rest and digest as well. But the part of the polyvagal theory or the polyvagal ladder that we often don't talk about is the dorsal vagal shutdown. That's when the immobilization or the collapse or the freeze is kind of a blended state, but that flop state, that like, I can't do it. And depression really mirrors the dorsal vagal state, that way down at the bottom of your system. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. It's actually a protective response. It's to conserve energy. Think about the animal that's attacked in the wild that plays dead. This response will happen in abuse. If you've ever been assaulted or experienced sexual abuse, there's, a lot of shame with victims of abuse, survivors of abuse, who say like, but I just laid there, or I allowed it to happen, or I couldn't scream, or I went away in my head. That's the dorsal vagal. That's the playing dead. That's a survival tactic. And your system is brilliant for doing it. It feels like maybe I could have fought back. My guess is that that wasn't available to you. And even if you had, it would have spent energy that you needed to survive. Don't let me tell you what happened in your system, but that's just my guess over decades of hearing women talk about the shame that they have around not fighting back and allowing it to happen. It's a protective response of your system. So it looks like after the trauma or in the everyday, or even if you did not experience a capital T trauma that instigated your depression, I'm actually saying in this episode that I think a lot of depression is just unexpressed emotion from lowercase trauma and maybe your capital T trauma too, but just from the trauma of being a human, it can look like becoming numb, exhausted, disconnected, immobilized. Like your system is hitting like the power save button, right? Going into low battery mode or like next to no battery mode. Like just keep me alive, keep me breathing, but I conserve all of the energy because I can't. Okay. So kind of taking the shame out of this happening for the people it happens to. Okay, so if depression is actually a physiological state, as we're establishing here, healing it requires a physiological shift, right? Movement, breath, relational safety, somatic practices, not just positive thinking, right? When my husband was at his lowest point, it was just amazing to me. People who cared, but like they would say things like, he just needs to get out more. What's a hobby that he likes? Can I get him a book that would cheer him up? Like let me give him a call to cheer him up. This isn't about cheering up somebody's negative thoughts. And yes, all of these things are helpful, right? Showing support to someone who's experiencing shutdown or who's in true depression. Yes, don't not be supportive. And I was so gracious to all of these people and certainly didn't give them a spiel about how that was like futile in the face of what was a physiological nervous system response my husband was experiencing. But this isn't about thinking positive. Okay. This is shifting the nervous system, moving up the polyvagal ladder to come out of shutdown. So let's just do a mini practice right here, just 60 seconds. If you're feeling the call to microdose but unsure about where to start or to source, the Embodied Microdosing Sacrament Shop is a safe and sacred space for you to explore. Inside, you can find pure, organic, handcrafted tinctures, including our 2 mushrooms, psilocybin and Amanita muscaria, both designed for your healing, grounding, and connection. We also have flower remedies like rose, lavender, holy basil, just perfect to complement your mushroom microdosing practice. All of these liquid remedies are easy to dose, very tasty, and can be taken directly in your mouth or added to your tea or water. If you're curious about how they feel, you can read some of the testimonials inside the shop for inspiration. You can explore all of the offerings at embodiedmicrodosing.com/shop. These are sacred remedies for spiritual self-healers. That's embodiedmicrodosing.com/shop. Super simple halo breath to begin generating some energy, some flow, and some movement in your system. Even if you don't identify as depressed, this may help. You're going to inhale to the count of 4 through the nose. Hold at the top for just a moment and exhale long at the count of 6 through your mouth. There you go. Do that again. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Breath work is so critical. Do it again. Inhale. Critical for in toning the vagus nerve, for beginning to invite in some of the movement. I'm going to guess that those in real shutdown are breathing super shallow. So just beginning, it doesn't need to be anything dramatic, just beginning to move more air, inhaling, holding, and exhaling for 6, nice and long through the mouth. Beginning to invite more safety, more tone in your system, more movement slowly, sustainably with your breath. Okay, moving on here. Do you want to keep breathing? You keep going. I'm going to keep talking. So here it is. The number one thing I think I know, and I know that you know, and I know that you've heard this, that I want to offer as treatment for quote unquote depression. Movement. Movement. Movement is one of the strongest research-backed tools that we have for depression. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies proving this, showing this. It's what makes me so angry when a practitioner just gives someone a pill, right? Like the research is very clear. Movement increases neurogenesis. It shifts brain chemistry. It interrupts the immobilization pattern, right? We're talking about depression being a physiological issue. You've got to get in your body to movement. Okay. And here's the hard part about this: depression wants stillness, isolation, laying on the couch, scrolling on the phone. I don't have the energy. My body hurts too much to do that. Right. So there's like this call to sort of do the opposite of what the system is saying it can handle. And that's why we've really got to start gentle and small and build that trust, starting to mobilize. Circling the wrists and the ankles seems really small. When I said movement, you probably thought of like a hit workout or going for a long run, right? If you're somebody who moves, someone in depression and in shutdown and even in freeze, circling the wrists and the ankles, circling the neck, standing up, circling the hips, breaking up some of that stagnation. Circles in the body are a great way to do that. Circling the shoulders, circling the heart space. This can be a way that I will offer in a session with someone who's kind of in an immobilized state or a low state, to start moving some of that energy. But yes, working out too. Many people have to build their way to that, but pushing around weights, even 10-pound weights, is going to shift that brain chemistry. It's going to create proprioception in the body. It's going to help you get a feeling for your borders, where you begin and end. Yoga, oh my gosh, yoga, incredible for depression. Or anything at all. A freaking bike ride, a stationary bike ride, a walk in nature, outside, in the sun, in the morning, sunrise or sunset. I'm going to get to that seasonal affective disorder here, because I think this is timely as we're coming into winter. We're not talking about heroic workouts. We're talking about finding some consistency here if depression is something you struggle with, or if just coming into the winter season has you nervous about going into that lower place, that more numb place, or that sad grieving place. I'm inviting you into 10 minutes, 20 minutes of walking, stretching, shaking, somatic yoga, or any of the embodiment exercises that are offered inside of the ministry. Okay, let's talk about seasonal affective disorder and this invitation I want to give you to reclaim winter, because even though I haven't struggled with depression in the clinical sense, or in the way that we define it in our culture, I can absolutely relate to what happens for many people in the winter. In fact, 20 years ago, when my husband and I left the Northeast and hightailed it for North Carolina just 6 weeks after getting married, we did it. One of the main reasons was because we were so sick of winter up north. We were so sick of what felt like 6 months of cold and rain and wet and snow and gray days, and the kind of mental and emotional state we both felt like we were in by February and March of every year. And we just knew there was going to be more sunshine in the Carolinas. It helped tremendously. And I won't lie to you, there were many years in the Carolinas where by January, February, I was like, oh my gosh, it's just as bad as being up north. It felt just as cold and wet and rainy. We do get more sunny days here, especially in the winter, but I just want to let you know I see you if it comes to the wintertime blues, the resistance to winter, this expectation that a lot of us have going into winter, where we're like, oh man, it's going to be bad. So here's a reframe for you. Okay. Winter is supposed to be winter. Winter is this way for a reason. Expecting yourself to feel like you do in summer in the winter is just plain silly. It's silly. We push ourselves. We want to be able to accomplish just as much. We have all of these plans for, our New Year's resolutions, and then beat ourselves up when our bodies ask for something else, when our bodies ask for soup and rest and more sleep. And we might label that as depression. I can't motivate to do anything. Maybe you're not supposed to do the exact same amount of stuff you do in winter as you do in summer or spring or fall. Please consider that. Hint, hint, you're not. Here's a reframe for you. What if you looked at this wintering as sacred? I did not start to shift out of my anger at winter, my resistance to winter, my constant complaining. It's so cold again today. When is spring going to come towards the end of winter? Until I reframed it as a season of integration and rest and slowing down, until I stopped looking at my body and my mind as failing me or flawed when they didn't perform up to speed. They don't have as much sunlight and resources, but they do have more coziness and rest. There's that real component of reduced sunlight and a disrupted circadian rhythm that I just want to name here. Like light matters, okay? But emotionally and spiritually, winter is inviting in rest, like real rest, not doom scrolling rest. Lying down and scrolling is not rest. Sorry to me, because I want to believe that it is real rest, restorative rest. Really, for me, I get that when I am reading just a story, a novel, fiction, nothing too stimulating, no murder and kidnapping. And for me, that just, I wasn't going into rest. I was going into activation with those kinds of books, even though they're great and juicy, but just a romance, something kind of light. What gets you in that resting place? Cooking, crafting, using your hands, redecorating your home, right? Snuggling with your kids, reading children's stories. Yeah, real rest. Winter also invites us into warm cooked foods. If you're like crunching on salads all winter and you don't know why, you're feeling bloated and like not okay, it might be because you're supposed to have warmth in winter. Soups, broths, cooked foods, roasts, deep nourishment. I think hot cocoa too, right? Winter invites us into candlelight. I just got my yearly big pack of 26 candles. I went away from tapers and I've got some pillar candles this year. 100% beeswax for me. I don't like anything scented, soy candles, none of that. They're actually not great for you. All those like Yankee candle stuff. Try and get yourself some clean candles and light more candles. It is positively freaking magical to live by candlelight. Because guess what? That's the light we're supposed to live by. These huge LED lights that I wish I hadn't installed in my house when I built it 5 years ago before I really understood light. Blaring overhead at 9 o'clock at night. Nope, not a gift to my system, right? A little lamp next to the couch turned on, some candlelight, some gentler, softer light. That's a beautiful cue to the nervous system. And I want to invite you to get outside this winter when the sun is out. What I see in the pattern of people who say they have seasonal affective disorder is that they're mostly just depressed, that when they get out of work or, when they're done with their day, it's dark and they don't ever get to see light. If you are in a corporate job where you are inside a building without access to a lot of sunlight during the hours of sunlight, I am sorry for you. And also, you do get breaks. And I know it's cold out, but walk outside and look at the sun. Before work, walk outside and take a walk when the sun is out. Yeah, I do it. I've got a big, ugly, puffy coat. I've got a hat on. You can put gloves on. I have puffy socks, wool socks, and boots. And I'm tromping around out there on a 35-degree morning when the sun is up for my morning walk. You can do that too. I know it's not fun. You're invited to take in the sunlight when it's happening, even if it's cold. Okay, that's your responsibility. It's also a great time for detox, for sweating, for red lights. Having my sauna lights, my red panel turned on. I mean, I use it every single day in the winter. Just it's next to my desk right now. At night, I might go down to my mom's infrared sauna. I feel very lucky to have access to that. There's a lot of access to red light now, infrared, which can be really, really healing and helpful on a cellular level, detoxifying, and also helping to keep that mood boosted. I love me some super hot Epsom salt baths in the winter too. Like, kind of like my husband is like, oh my God, you're scalding your body, but like my scalp is sweating, right? As my body is in the bath. Like, that's a detox bath. Okay. It's a time for journaling. It's a time to tend to your plants. It's time to tend to your home, to clean out the closets and the drawers, the stuff that I don't want to do when it's gorgeous outside and I'd rather be outside. That's when I tend to my home and my body in the season of winter. And this is how I successfully healed what would be called seasonal affective disorder, or this just negative, crabby, I'm pale and I'm ugly. By February, I feel fat. I just want to go outside. Everything sucks. I hate everyone's state that I used to get into in winter, and really reframed it and changed the narrative around it. Okay. So let's come back to psychedelics and depression. And I just want to remind those of you, or in case you don't know, that there's so much research on full dose psilocybin sessions and depression. A lot. Like lots of clinical trials showing large, rapid, sustained reductions in depression. I mean, when you read the summary of these clinical trials, it's amazing. Huge reductions in depression was being reported by the patients when psilocybin is paired with psychotherapy. I think this is important. I would love to see what happens when psilocybin is paired with regular embodiment. But that psychotherapy piece, really beautiful here, partnered with the psychedelic, and effective, effective, very large scale, rapid, and sustained reductions in depression. And many of these participants in these clinical trials, they say they're in remission, basically. Like they're like, it doesn't exist. My depression does not exist after 1 or 2 large dose, full dose psilocybin journeys. Like, what? Right? That's crazy. That's amazing. Okay. So the research on microdosing is early, right? Most studies are like self-reported, as in the study that I did in 2023 had people filling out forms, but people do report improved mood. Okay, they do. And just reminding that microdosing is best used in conjunction with movement therapy, EMDR, somatic work, lifestyle support, right? This isn't a standalone cure, but the data is pretty compelling. Okay. All right. Let's see. Where are we going to go here? Be really careful. I talked about this in the ADHD episode, but I want to just remind those of you that resonate with having the label of depression or using the word depression or having a diagnosis of depression. Just be careful. Labels can be helpful until they become your identity. They do. I did this with chronic illness. So when we over-identify with being depressed, I'm so depressed. My depression is here. Oh, here comes winter. My depression is going to get worse, right? Oh, today I'm really depressed. Today's a bad day for my depression. Like, think about how much you might be attached to that word and have in some ways unconsciously made it part of your identity, right? It starts to feel fixed. It starts to feel unchangeable. It starts to feel like a huge part of who you are. And I want to just shake you out of that shit. You are not a depressed person. You are a system you are a person who has a system that's in a depressive state. Okay. And your state can shift. Right. So instead of I'm depressed, you can try my system is feeling depressed, but I can shift that state. Okay? We're empowering change inside of this community. We're reducing the hopelessness that's associated with a diagnosis and the attachment that we can get to it. I also want to touch on this. Sometimes this can be triggering, but like, what are you getting out of being depressed? What's the benefit? And you might initially think there's no benefits to this. I hate it. I would do anything to not be depressed. I just want to ask you to be really real with yourself. What works about this? What do you get to opt out of? Right? What things do you not have to engage with? What can you avoid? All because I'm depressed. You're depressed, right? A lot of times these chronic states that we get into have a benefit, a secretive benefit under the surface. My chronic illness allowed me to say no to doing all of the things I didn't want to do, to eating anything I didn't want to eat, to engaging and going to the gatherings of anybody that I didn't like, because I just couldn't. I was too sick to, right? How is depression also a pass in your life? Not calling you out to say you've done anything wrong, but to be really honest with you, to see the flip side of how it might be serving you and be honest with yourself as you lean into healing. Healing means having to actually speak up and be empowered around what works and what doesn't work, and not use your state and your condition as a way to have boundaries or to get what your needs met. It's scary. It can be scary, and it's freaking empowering when you stop doing it. So a few more things just from an integrative healing standpoint, because of my background, because of what I do know about how the body works. Just a little reminder that vitamin D levels are heavily correlated with depression. Where do we get vitamin D? Ding, ding, ding. The sun, right? The sun. It is mostly absorbed in the back and the belly. So that's why in summertime we can get more of it and we have more exposure to it and more skin and receptors available to receive it. But yeah, out in the sunlight without the sunglasses on, let's get you that circadian rhythm, that melatonin going. And if you need to supplement a vitamin D3, put it with a K2 if you can. It's the only time of year that my family does take vitamin D is in the winter. The rest of the time we're expected to get outside. I write it on a list for my teenager of things he needs to do every weekend with his chores. It includes going outside and showing your body to the sun, belly and back. He just takes his shirt off and lays in the yard. Okay, we got to get that D. You got to get that sunlight. I talked about the importance of detox, but depression is also correlated with high levels of pathogens, toxins, mold, heavy metals, virus and bacteria, parasites in the system that are keeping your system down. So supporting your liver, moving your lymph, working your breath, sweating, all of these wonderful ways that we can naturally live the detox lifestyle, bring it into the picture here for your holistic healing. Of course, I talked about circadian rhythm and getting out in nature. Don't be afraid of the cold. Just buy a better jacket. And the incredible power of breath work. Look, there are plenty of studies that also show how breath work reduces depressive symptoms, improves stress markers, reduces inflammation. Move in air, y'all. Move it in and out. Let's do a little bliss breath in and out of the nose. My yogi friends know this is breath of fire. It's kind of a passive inhale through the nose, but quick. And then emphasis on the exhale, like you're blowing out a candle, but with your nose. And do that in and out. Yeah, bring that in 30 seconds here. This is a mobilizing breath. This breath can help you get up and out of bed. It can help you shift out of some depressive thoughts. It brings the physiology online. Keep going in and out of the nose. And start to generate energy, fire, life force, prana in your belly and in your system using the power of your breath. Air. It's completely free. Okay, you can stop that now and hold your breath, top or bottom. Just let your system settle, breathing any way that you like, and just noticing your body, your amazing freaking body, your heart beating. And making a commitment, whether you identify with depression as a symptom or not, to bring in movement, grounding, embodiment, dance, shaking into your life. If you've got kids, teenagers experience depression, that screen time is a huge correlation in depressed states. The blue light from screens, really trying to, I get my teenager to wear blue blocking glasses at night when he's gaming sometimes, and to get outside and get that morning sunlight, to take breaks from screens, to play an instrument, to connect with family. No, they're not happy about it. They're teenagers and this is their drug of choice. And you are being charged to show them how their device might be impacting them, even as you encourage movement in the way that they can move. Yeah, you might not be able to get a teenager to do breath work, but does your teenager like to kick a ball? Right? Can they go on a walk with you? Can you get them to be silly with the family and wrestle? There's a lot of ways to practice embodiment. It doesn't have to look hippy dippy. It doesn't have to look spiritual, but you got to get in your body if you want to move this energy of suppression. Of course, feeling your feelings. This is how I started things. Depression is suppression. It's not allowing that grief and that rage to be expressed. It gets swallowed down, it gets dense, it gets heavy, and the system is collapsing around it. So this may mean, this may mean going to therapy and having to talk about and process what happened to you and allowing the tears to come if that's the best way you know how to begin to feel. This may mean not talking about it at all and just having a regular practice of punching your pillow 100 times at night, jumping up and down 100 times in the morning, swinging your arms around and around 100 times. I don't know where I'm getting this 100 number, but it's more than just like jump up and down twice. You know what I mean? You really got to start engaging and moving the body. And a lot of times movement can mobilize that emotion. I don't know about you all who've been to yoga, but my first few times I got into Shavasana at the end of class and laid on the mat and burst into tears. It was like, where'd that come from? Right? The emotion can follow when we begin to move that energetic suppression. So what will support you in feeling what has not been felt, in allowing the tears and the grief? It doesn't have to come with reliving anything, especially if you feel like, I don't even know what happened to me. I just feel this way, right? I don't have this like trauma I can point to for a lot of people, although many of us can. You got to move it out. You got to move it out. Come over on my TikTok. I posted it, reposted it, I think, inside the ministry too. I have just like a 3 minute, 4 minute video on feeling and moving anger that involves like growling and hissing and twisting a pillow. And those who tried it, after they tried it, are like, oh my God, that was awesome. I like really felt something come up. Okay. So there are plenty of resources out there for beginning to feel what needs to be felt. But a long format breathwork journey, those inside the Journey to Heal membership, we just got a few new members and they are like, whoa, this is amazing, right? Why? Because spending an hour allowing yourself to be guided into breath and nervous system recalibration and into your unconscious mind with the support of a microdose can induce all sorts of feelings, and they're manageable, and you're in control, and you're safe to let them flow. So see what you can do about letting yourself feel. Notice where you're swallowing things down. Allow that emotion to rise. What is it? 90 seconds? 90 seconds is what the research shows. If we really let ourselves feel the feeling, is how long it lasts. When we suppress it, when we swallow it down, when we fight with it, it's a whole other experience, and it creates a whole other host of symptoms. Let the feelings flow. And remember that everything works best in combination, right? It's never just one thing. It's sunlight cured it all. My microdosing was everything. I changed my nutrition and it did it all. Yes, there are some things that really can move the needle, but it's also often that combination, right? Microdosing plus movement, plus a shift in nutrition, plus more sunlight, plus a little bit of feeling and breathing. Yes, now I feel my system shifting out of this dorsal vagal, this suppressed energy state, and beginning to feel again. Look, and don't be surprised if when you start to feel it's uncomfortable, and you might even go into some more anxious feeling energies and patterns. That polyvagal ladder moves us up from dorsal vagal through sympathetic activation and up into connected and rested and digested. So sometimes you got to move through some activation to get to regulation. This is normal. This is why you want support, and you want to have this education and know-how for working with your nervous system and these sacred medicines. So, how are you feeling? What's here? What's resonating about what I'm sharing? Just kind of want to wrap things up for you with some reminders here. Depression is a protective state, not a personal failure. Okay, it's really hard not to get frustrated with people who are depressed. If you're not the depressed one, I was very frustrated with my husband. It was like, just get it together, right? Just get your shit together. And it took really learning about what was happening for him and seeing him move through all of this. By the way, he is doing wonderful with this work. He still has remnants. There are echoes, there are days, there are moments where he touches back in with this place. And I can tell he gets like, oh no, I'm not going back here. I'm not slipping into this for weeks and months and years again, like I lived my life in the first half. I have learned, I know how to, I use my breath, I work my body. He came to a journey that we had inside the membership a couple of days ago after feeling a slip back into depression after the holidays. He lost his dad this year. So he's really feeling into that. His father was someone who experienced depression too. So he's feeling into the sort of ancestral piece of this. And he understands now how to work with himself. And he does not identify as a depressed person anymore, as an identity, as a way of being, as a default state for him. So celebrating that healing is possible, and knowing that many inside the Embodied Microdosing Ministry and the community over the last 5 years of doing this work with me and with these sacred medicines also have experienced healing from this state. So it is possible. Healing asks you to feel what's been suppressed. And my husband came to that journey the other night. He cried his eyes out for about 2 minutes. And then he felt, and then he breathed, and then he realized, and then he had some ahas, and then he had a little bit of a spiritual experience and a message that came to him, right? You don't have to do it that way. That's the way we do it. And that really works inside the ministry, especially if you're interested in these longer format journeys that we offer inside of the membership, the paid portion of the ministry. But come to our free service the first Sunday of every month. That's 20 minutes of breath work. Not as intimidating, perhaps, and many people feel that energy rise, feel that emotion rise, and drop into a more alive state when we breathe. So, which microdosing medicine can support the process here? Predominantly, I talk about the original sacrament, which is made with psilocybin containing mushrooms, but we do have a new sacrament that I believe could be really supportive for um, depressive type symptoms. It's called Amanita muscaria. I call it the Amanita sacrament. And this legal mushroom, which I've been talking about more and more and sharing more and more of within the community now that I make a sacrament of it, really can take us into a dream like state. Now, when it comes to depression, you might think, why do I want to go into dream and sleep, right? The sleep of depression, I think, is a more an escape sleep, not a restorative sleep, like a shutdown sleep. Like, I just can't deal with anything, so I'm just going to go to bed or take a nap or sleep in, right? Amanita takes us into this dreamy, lucid place where we can touch in with these deeper parts of ourselves, into that invitation into winter to rest more, to be in that dream state and heal in the magical spaces of in between sleep and awake. Amanita has the potential for that. It also helps to ease trauma where it's stored in the body, which I think could be helpful for depression. But I'm also open to your feedback. Head to the site, head to the Sacrament Shop. The links are all in the show notes, and read the reviews for Amanita. Let me know if you think that medicine could support you, especially if you're wanting to move through this heaviness this winter. There's also a new sacrament in the shop I think could be extremely helpful. I know is extremely helpful for depression. Lemon balm. This is an herb that has been around for a long time, is heavily studied, beautiful for cold and flu, virus and bacteria, but a brightener, a mood lifter. When you taste it, you'll understand. It sort of brings in the light. My friend who first introduced me to lemon balm called it the gladdening herb. Right? It brings in gladness and joy. So this is a non-psychoactive herbal formula that's shared in the Sacrament Shop in complement to very affordable, under $20. It's on sale right now if you're listening to this in real time. And I think lemon balm might be a beautiful remedy to look into this winter if you need support, brightening, gladdening, shifting out of that heavy state and moving energetically, physiological, spiritually through the muck and to the other side. Really, really, really. So I don't know, what little lifestyle practices or daily anchors can you commit to after hearing this? I listed a lot of things, but I want you to just pick one, right? That 10 minutes of movement, that 2 minutes of breathing, that sunlight every day, those warmer, more nourishing meals, those creative ways of using your hands around the home, journaling, co-regulating, relational support with somebody that you trust. Winter's your opportunity to do some healing on the cycle of depression. Each winter, I take the opportunity to repattern and to say, nope, I'm not going to go into that SAD, seasonal affective, super crabby, snippy with everyone, annoyed it's cold again place, just kind of huddled up and like, man, I have chapped lips and a chapped nose. Man, nope, not doing it. Also, taking sugar out and really taking care of your body. It's not cold and flu season, y'all. I ate a bunch of sugar over the holidays and my immune system took a hit season. So take care of yourself and your body will take care of you. And remember that you are an incredible body, mind, and spirit, and all parts of you work together holistically. So this invitation is for you to connect with one or two things that I said and begin your process of healing your depression, that repression in your system that is giving you a sacred signal and is asking you to see or feel or recognize something that you don't yet see. So asking yourself, where am I suppressing? What am I not allowing myself to feel? Hint, hint, most people are terrified of grief and anger. What does my body need today to shift just 1 millimeter out of shutdown? Some questions for you as we close up this episode today. Really want to encourage you to visit the links in the show notes. A few more days on the sale in the Sacrament Shop if you're listening in real time, and a just warm, loving message of connection and healing to you as we approach the holidays. I'm so grateful for you and all of your support for the ministry. We have awesome things planned for 2026. I can't wait to roll into the year with you. We'll start the year strong right in mid-January with an embodied microdosing challenge. This will be 28 days of my support in a small group inside the ministry app where we will You'll have access to oodles of coaching videos, breathwork tracks, embodiment videos, and food for thought as you lean in with the sacraments. This can be the original sacrament, this can be the Amanita sacrament, and hey, this could even be the flower and herb remedies that we offer. 28 consecutive days of taking a medicine like rose, you're going to experience a healing. Come on into that container when you hear about it in January, and let's do some deep, rich healing without having to do anything crazy or big or grand. It's about the micro, the intentional, the small shifts again and again that will get you there. Thanks for your support, y'all.